Hello, my name is Marian Wynn. I came out from Minnesota when I was just 18 years old.
Excuse me, I must have. Well, maybe just point it a little bit better, maybe. Towards
Oh, I came out to California when I was 18. I had just turned 18 the week before, and I came out to live with my dad. Had been here since 1942, but he wouldn't let me come out unless I graduated. So I was a pipe welder in Yard 3. We had a little area called West Storage, and there was 11 women working with me. We would weld all pipes together as they wanted. So when they were taken to the ship, they would all be welded, ready to put in place. I was there for 11 months, and the war ended, and I got married, and I'm still here.
Well, I'm so happy to be here and hear all these stories from you wonderful, wonderful warriors. You just don't know how grateful I am for what you did. I was here at home, comfortable. I was eating at my table. I was sleeping in my bed. I didn't suffer, but I went to the shipyard and got a job as a welder. And we built Liberty ships and Victory ships, and I worked for Kaiser Permanente. We built 747 ships in the 4 years of the war. So I just think that you men should be put on pedestals.
Hello, my name is Marian Sousa. I came to California just to be a babysitter, but I wound up marrying a Coast Guardsman and staying in Richmond for my senior year in high school. When I graduated, I had an art class teacher that recommended me for a special class at UC Berkeley. It was a 6 weeks course in engineering drawing, and I learned to draw blueprints. And 6 weeks later, I was hired right out of the classroom to work at Shipyard Number 3 in the engineering department as a draftsman. I worked on the blueprints for the ships. I was one of the people that had to lie about my age. I was only 17, but I was erasing architect's drawings and putting in my own. But I was happy that I could do something towards the war effort, and that was a skill I had, and I'm really proud of it now. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'll have to sit down because I'm having trouble with the sciatic nerve in my hip. I am Pricilla Elder, and I was married with a 20-month-old child when I came to work in Richmond, California in the shipyard, and I was hired as electrician. I did the panel boxes that were later on mounted onto the ship. I did have a 20-month-old child, and I tell people that my time was not like a lot of others. I was a young mother, and my husband was drafted in 1942, and he was under George Patton's army. I heard somebody talking about the Battle of the Bulge, and he was involved in that. And so he had a slight injury, but they were in Belgium when the Battle of the Bulge took place, and I'm not talking in the mic.
Push it in front of your mouth.
I can't see down there. But anyway, I'm not very good at talking. So anyway, to make the long story short, they were going up this hill, and he got noticed by one of the speakers, because he was a radio operator, and he was told not to go any higher. They were driving up this ship, and he said, why not? I mean, they were driving up the bank. Anyway, the fella said to him, you better not go any further. Tell your driver to stop. So he told him, why?
Well, he said the Germans are up there already, and they will get you by the time you get up there. Well, so they stopped. Pretty soon, Patton got on the phone and said, "What are you doing stopped up there?" And he said, "Well, I just got word the Germans up on the hill and they'll get us." He said, "Well, you get on up there and get the Germans." Well, they did get up there, but the Germans got their tank and blew their tank up, and the driver and a captain that was with them were killed. And talking about the Battle of the Bulge, it was a disaster. There was a lot of men that lost their lives and never did recover from their injuries. And my husband was slightly injured in that with 3 other men, but they were taken to France in a hospital for several months. Then he later joined but he was one of the men that didn't want to talk about the war at all. And later on in our lives, we did go to the reunions that they had. And the last one we went to was in 2007, and there was only 9 members that attended this reunion because some of them had been gone and some were too ill to travel. My husband did live till he was 93 and a half years old, and because he had a stroke. He passed away 4 years ago, and I do live alone, but right now I'm ailing with a bad leg, and my son is with me at the time. He was in the Vietnam War also, and he talked about some of the areas that you men have been talking about here tonight. I also had a brother that was in the Navy, and he was in Pearl Harbor right after it was bombed, and he was on, I don't know who was talking. They were in a typhoon during the war, and he said his ship went up 90 degrees up. One of the sailors happened to fall out, and they thought they'd lost him. And when the wind stopped him, turned the other way, believe it or not, that sailor came back on the ship. So they didn't lose anybody on his ship after all. But he talked about it. He was on the USS Dewey at the time. I'm going to make my time short now because we've been listening to all these wonderful stories that weren't really wonderful, but they are wonderful to hear, to see what all the men went through themselves. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. Please.
I would just like to add that I'm 95 years old, and Pricilla is the younger. She was 6 months.
No, I'm only 23 days younger than you.
Yeah, so she's younger than I am.
I'm 5 and I am too. Let's put it that way.
And I'm 89, and so is the other Marian is 80. We're 89.